This is DVP reporting, and this is Reds game scored number 33 for this season. The date is Wednesday, the 18th of September, 1985. Tonight at Atlanta, it'll be the Cincinnati Reds against Bobby Wine's struggling Atlanta Braves in the first of a two-game series. This will be the first game of a two-city, five-game Western Division road trip for Pete Rose's Reds gang. After this two-game series with Atlanta, the Reds travel to Houston to take on those hot Astros for a three-game weekend set starting Friday night, and then an off-day Monday, and then the Reds come back home to take on some more Western Division ball clubs. Of course, the Reds back in the West now for the rest of the year, and that's the series next Tuesday will begin the final homestand of the year for the Cincinnati Reds. They will play their final home game on Sunday the 29th of this month, and then go on the road for the final week of the season, ending up October 6th, and will close out the year on that date at Los Angeles. That could be a key ball game. The Reds right now, 11 over 500. They'll be searching for consecutive win number 4 this evening. They've won 3 straight, 3 excellent ball games, and I'll be recapping all of those wins here in just a little while here in my Reds recap section. In all, I've got 7 games to look at since my last game scored a week ago. 5 Reds wins and 2 losses. The Reds now have their best record of the year, 11 games over 500. They're 11 over for the first time in 4 years at 77 and 66 so far this year. So it's been a dandy year for the Reds. They need to win only 4 more games the rest of this year to assure themselves of a plus 500 campaign for the first time since 81. Well, my last game scored, as mentioned, was 1 week ago on Wednesday, the 11th of this month, and that's a date that'll go down in Reds and baseball history as one of the most memorable, well, of all time. That was a day that Pete Rose set the new all-time Major League hits record with numbers 4192 and later 4193 with a triple in the 7th inning. But the big base hit in the first inning with 1 out was a solid single to left center, of course, on September the 11th of this 85 season, and that base hit is the most memorable hit, I guess, in Reds history. It's been written about, and it's been photographed more times than you probably want to hear about, and of course, Pete Rose plastered on the front about every publication in the country the next day on September the 12th. Rose gets the big hit. Rose gets the hit. Rose breaks the record. Those were the headlines on September 12th's editions. And it did happen in a game that I scored. I was lucky enough to have that down on the docket and scored that contest. And really the outcome was sort of anticlimactic. After the big hit in the first inning, everyone was high, and they really didn't care what happened after that. But Pete Rose, of course, did, and as he is the player-manager of the ball club, and more than anything else, he wanted that hit attached to a victory, and it was a fine 2-0 shutout over the San Diego Padres a week ago today. And so that was my last one scored. A memorable day at Riverfront Stadium with Rose getting number 4192, a day that'll go down in history. And it happened at the home park. That's good. He tied the record, of course, with number 4191 at Chicago the previous Sunday in that tie game. A strange ball game that was. He wasn't supposed to play, but did play when Steve Trout hurt himself, and he played against Sanderson, or make that Patterson, and he got the tying hit, and then waited a couple of days to get the big one, and it happened a week ago today. So I've got 7 games to recap, and let's start with the final game of the 4-game series at Riverfront against the Padres. That was the first leg of 3 in that homestand. A very good homestand for Cincinnati. They finished at 7-3, a little bit sluggish in that Dodgers series, but they came out of it with 2 wins, winning games 2 and 4, the Dodgers taking the first and third games of that weekend set, and then the Reds swept the Giants away completely last night and the night before. An incredible 9-0 record for the Reds at Riverfront against San Francisco this year. That's the first time the Reds have swept an opponent at home over an entire season since 1963, when at Old Crosley Field the Reds swept the New York Mets, a lowly Mets ball club back then, 9 straight games. Of course, they lost over 100 their first 2 years in existence in 62 and 63. So it's the first time in some 22 years that has happened. A clean sweep at home against the Giants this year, and they've now won, I think, all but 2 games at home against the Giants way back to June of 83, 2.5 years ago. So the Giants have found Riverfront a very hard place to win in over the last 2 or 3 seasons. Well, the Reds beat the Padres to take 3 out of 4 in that crucial series with the third-place ball club, and they further increased their lead over the Padres and established themselves even further in second place with a 2-1 win on Thursday night, September the 12th. That was an unscheduled ball game. That game was played because of one of the ball games that was canceled, or postponed, we should say, because of the strike. That made up for the August 7th cancellation. That was day 2 of the 2-day players' strike, which is all but forgotten now. The Reds have gotten back to playing some good baseball. Nobody thinking about the strike. But that was unscheduled. A lot of people didn't know what was on the slate at all, and only 13,418 came out the day after Pete Rose got the big hit. Rose was just dog-tired and did not play. He was on the Phil Donahue show that morning, taped that program. It aired the next day. And he also did all 3 morning network news programs. He had a spot on all of those. Of course, dozens of interviews at the ballpark after the ball game, the night before and before the next contest. So he was just dragging, and he decided not to play. And maybe it's good that he didn't, because Tony Perez, his successor at first base that evening, of course, he's been platooning with Pete, he came up with what proved to be the go-ahead RBI, which came in the top of in a 2-run Reds first inning. The first run was driven in by Buddy Bell. That's the game-winning RBI, officially his 3rd of the year. And Perez knocked in an insurance run in that inning also, his 28th RBI, and that really meant the difference in the 2-1 final. So Tony, 2 for 3, continuing to swing that wickedly hot bat that he's had almost all year. The Reds had 2 runs, 6 hits, no errors, and left 3. The Pods had a run, 8 hits, no errors, and left 7. Jay Tibbs got the win, pitching 8 innings of 7-hit 1-run ball to go to 8-15. Ted Power came on and went 2/3, and he notched his 21st save. He's back on the beam now after allowing something like 9 runs in 3 innings over 4 or 5 games before picking up his 20th save in that game that Rose got the big hit in on September the 11th, so he had saves in 2 straight games. Andy Hawkins took the loss. He went all the way, though, allowing 6 hits, no walks, 2 runs in 8 innings, and 1 strikeout. He's 17-6. Only 2 hours and 3 minutes to play that one. The longest game in that 4-game series was the big day on Wednesday. The 2-0 shutout when Rose got the hit. 2 hours, 17 minutes. 7 minutes of that was a standing ovation. They played 2:08, 2:11, 2:17, and 2:03. That's about the shortest 4-game series you're going to see. All games played in really just over or just under 2¼ hours, which is very rapid indeed. So they got them out in a hurry, and the Reds won 3 of the 4 games and started off the homestand well. 13,000 and change on hand to see the 2-1 Reds win. No homers in the contest. So Tibbs gets his 8th win of the year. He's still 7 under 500, but he's pitched well since being brought back August 1st from AAA Denver. The next day, I was down there for my final trip down to Riverfront this year. We saw the 4-game series, seated directly behind home plate up in the Red Loge box seats. Fine location to see a ball game. Best seats in the house, I believe. And we got to see 2 ends and some exciting baseball. In a doubleheader on Friday, September the 13th. It was Friday the 13th, and it was unlucky for the Reds in that first game, an 8-2 loss. The Reds came back in the nightcap on a sudden death game-winning single to the outfield by Eric Davis to post a 6-5 win and gain a split. 8 runs, 11 hits, no errors, and 9 left on the Dodger winning totals in Game 1. The Reds had 2 runs, 7 hits, 1 error, and left 8. The Reds are now 0-1-3 for 4 doubleheaders, all at home here in 1985, and that should be the final one. That is an unscheduled doubleheader, as was that single game the day before. They had 3 games on that homestand that were not supposed to be played, really, when the season was underway. That was supposed to be a 7-game stand. It turned into a 10 because of the 2-day strike. They had to add 2 games to the Padres series on off days, either side of the already scheduled 2-game series. And then because of a June rainout at home against the Dodgers, they had to tack on a doubleheader like they did in August against them. And, well, that comes about, of course, now on Friday the 13th. So hard to win doubleheaders even at home, and the Reds have not managed to win any this season. We did manage a split. Oral Hershiser continues his mastery over the Reds as he picks up his 15th win of this season with 8 strong innings in the first game Friday night. 6 hits and a run is all he allowed, 15-3, and then Tom Niedenfuer came on. The Reds went with Andy McGaffigan, Bob Buchanan, Tom Hume, John Stuper, and Rob Murphy. Murphy, in his first Major League game, got hit for 2 runs in 1 inning. So his Major League debut was not all that memorable. I think the first pitch he ever threw in the majors was turned around by Mike Marshall for his 2nd home run of the game and his 22nd of the year. He took one of the Reds pitchers out the other way and then took Murphy deep in the 9th inning when the Dodgers scored 2 to pad the lead. Ken Landreau gets the game winner, his 9th of the year. Bo Diaz, a home run, his 4th of the season and his 2nd since joining the Reds, both at Riverfront Stadium. So Marshall, 2 big home runs after striking out 3 straight times. He then hit 2 homers, knocked in 3 runs on the day. So it was feast or famine for Mike. 2 homers, 3 Ks in the 8-2 Dodger victory, 2 hours and 34 minutes. McGaffigan, he went 5 innings, and he's been pitching in some tough luck of late. He's still only won 1 game. Actually, has won another one since then. He did win last night, as a matter of fact, with a fine, complete game. I'll get to that in a minute. But he was 1-3 with his 3rd straight loss after giving up 5 hits and 3 runs and 3 walks in 5 innings. He struck out 5 batters. And he had not won a game in a month and a half until the time he beat the Giants last night. That brings us to Game 2 of the doubleheader. The Reds win at 6-5. A bottom of the 9th inning base hit over the head of the left fielder by Eric Davis. Davis would have had a double if he'd have run out that ball, but he didn't go all the way to second base, as I noticed. As he pulled up and turned around and then started, giving the high fives to everybody. So he had to run it out, so he wasn't able to get a double. Goes down as a game-winning single for Eric. That came with 1 man out in the bottom of the 9th inning off of Tom Niedenfuer, who was the loser. He's 7-6. Ted Power got the win with 1 inning. He's 6-4. Mario Soto started. He went 4 innings, allowed 5 hits and 4 runs with 5 walks. Not a very good outing. And he struck out 1 batter. That was his 200th strikeout of the year. And that is I think that's the 3rd time he struck out 200. I'm trying to think. He got 274, a club record in 1982. He then struck out 200 plus again in 83. So 3rd time in the last 4 years he has fanned 200 or more batters. Tom Hume, John Franco, and then Ted Power in relief. 3-hour game exactly, as the winning run scored from second base on the base hit by Eric Davis, his 3rd game-winning RBI of the season. He's been swinging the bat okay of late. He came on as a late replacement in left field, made a sensational catch the day before to save that 2-1 win. He came in for defensive purposes, banged up against the fence and bruised himself up pretty badly. Sensational catch to end that game, maybe save it. And then he wins the next game with a sudden death game-winning single to give the Reds a split in the doubleheader. Alejandro Pena started for Los Angeles. He went 2 1/3. He allowed 2 hits and an unearned run. That was his first appearance of the year. He's been on the disabled list all year. And then Dennis Powell, a rookie lefty, came on for 2. He allowed 2 runs. And then Ken Howell for 2 2/3. He dished up a couple of runs. And then Niedenfuer, he allowed a run. So everybody gave up runs for the Dodgers. A crowd of 28,961 on hand to see the doubleheader on Friday the 13th. 6 runs, 6 hits in air, and 9 left in Game 2 for the Reds, and yet another 1-run win and another come-from-behind style victory. The Reds trailed 4-1 in that game, got 4 in the 5th inning. And they went ahead 5-4. Dodgers tied into the 8th, the Reds won it in the 9th. 5 runs, 7 hits in air, and 8 left on for Los Angeles. And the next day was a single night contest. I should also mention the Reds had home run by Nicky Saski, his 16th of the year. He knocked in 3 runs in the second game of the doubleheader. Also a Dodger home run, opposite field shot by Lenny Matuzik, who's been around this year, a Cincinnati native who started his career with the Phillies, had his first major league hit, in fact, against the Reds in 1981. He was traded to the Blue Jays just before this season started, and now comes to the Dodgers in the deal for Al Oliver a short time ago. He hits his 2nd home run of this season in the National League, that is. A shot to left field right down the line. You won't see a home run like that too often. A left-handed batter hit one near the left field foul pole, just fair for his 2nd of the season. The Reds went on to win it 6-5. Had to get those home runs in. I didn't want to forget Saski's 16th of the year as he is pounding the ball right now. The Dodgers shut us out in the single game on Saturday night, September the 14th, 7-0. 16 hits, no errors, and 8 left on for the Dodgers. They had a big attack. Of course, they had just got through annihilating the Braves 4 times in a 5-game series, scoring having 91 hits in that 5-game series and an unbelievable number of runs. The Braves, whom the Reds will be playing tonight, have not been in the hunt this season, and they are falling fast in the West. They're settling in now into 5th place. They were in 6th for a while. The Reds are shut out for the 16th time this year. 6 hits, 4 errors, and 6 left on Saturday. Bob Welch, the complete game 6-hit shutout. Another shutout for those Dodgers. Welch is third of the year, the team's 22nd. By far the most in baseball. No walks, 3 strikeouts for Bob. He's 11-3 on the year. What a season he's having since coming back off the injury. Ron Robinson took the loss, and he'll be starting tonight again in the place of Mario Soto. Excuse me. Soto out with a leg injury or a foot problem. Actually, it's a toe injury that has had Mario miss the last 2 games, or his last 2 turns. Robbie loses for the 6th straight time. He's 5-6 coming into tonight's game, although he only allowed 2 earned runs in 6 innings on Saturday. 8 hits with 6 strikeouts. Bob Buchanan came on. He allowed 3 hits and a run in 2 innings, and then John Stuper was hit pretty hard in the 9th inning, allowing 5 hits and 3 runs. 2 hours and 29 minutes for that one. And the attendance was 29,771 paid, 30,547 total in the stadium. The Dodgers had a home run, another one from Mike Marshall, his 3rd in the series and his 23rd of the season. A game winner for Landreau, his 2nd in the series. For Ken, his 10th of the year. The Reds gained a split in the 4-game series with a tremendous come-from-behind win. And boy, that showed a lot of savvy in that game Sunday, September 15th on Team Picture Day. That closed out the 2nd series on the homestand. Reds would have liked to have taken 3 or 4 of those games, but ended up taking just 2, and they almost lost 3 or 4 had it not been for a big 9-run 6th inning on Sunday afternoon. 9 big ones to erase a 6-1 Dodger lead. The Reds went on to win it 10-6. 10 runs, 9 hits, an error, and 3 left on for the Reds. 6-9, 2-7 for Los Angeles. So the hit totals were even. Reds only 9 hits, but they get into double figures in the run column. Ted Power got another save, his 22nd, closing it out in relief of Tom Hume, who went 2 1/3 good hitless, runless innings. And Tom Browning, the starter, his 8th straight win. He's 17-9, 6 innings, 9 hits, 6 runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. And, well, he was a little bit fortunate in that ball game. Other games, well, he had pitched very good baseball, allowing 3 runs or less in most of his starts this year. And some of them coming out with losses or no decisions. So I guess turnabout is fair play. They all even out, as they say. He had a game when he really didn't have his good stuff, but the big 9-run 6 pulled him off the hook. Now, Browning was pinch hit for by Wade Rowden in his first appearance of the year, I believe. Rowden came up as a pinch hitter and walked, and later came up in the inning, hit into a force play, and ended up scoring 2 runs. Rowden did, the pinch hitter. So Browning, the recipient of the big 9-run frame, that's the 2nd biggest inning the Reds have had this year. They also, or not just 9, they scored in double figures. One game earlier this season, they had a 10-run inning in May at Riverfront against the New York Mets, and now they almost get there with 9, and what a big 9 spot that was to get us a split in the series and put us back where we started from at the beginning of the set, and that is 8.5 back. Otherwise, we would have fallen to double figures and games behind at 10.5 behind. We didn't want that to happen. The Reds showed a lot of poise in that ball game. A lot of heart, I guess, as they came back from the big deficit. Looked like they were down and out. But Pete Rose and his never-say-die attitude came through once again. Another come-from-behind win. The Reds have done that numerous times this season. Ron Oster gets the game-winning RBI coming in that 6th inning. That's his 4th of the year. Dave Parker drove in 2 runs. That's his first RBI since the 7th of the month when he hit a grand slam against the Cubs. Nick Esaski, 2 more RBIs. Concepcion, Diaz, Oster, Reedus all getting in on the act with runs batted in. And Reedus had the big blow. He capped off the 9-run 6 with a 3-run home run off of Carlos Diaz, who went 2 2/3, allowed 3 hits, 2 runs in relief of Fernando Valenzuela. Valenzuela, the loser, 17-10. So Browning now with a better record than Fernando. Fernando allowed 8 runs, 6 earned, 6 hits, and 5 1/3 innings with 6 strikeouts and a couple of walks. 2 hours and 24 minutes for that game. The crowd of 28,804 went home happy as the Reds turn around that Dodger lead into a lead of their own. Reds 10 and the Dodgers 6. What a fine game that was on Sunday. Gary Reedus' 6th home run of the year. And he didn't even, or yes, he did start the game. He did start a rare start in center, 2 for 5, and he knocked in 3 runs. He also stole a base, his 44th of the year, an all-around great day for Gary, the star of the game that afternoon. A big win. Browning wins his 8th in a row. The Reds split the series, a 10-6 final. Now, that's the first of now 3 consecutive wins, because on Monday night and Tuesday night, we came up with victories. Monday evening, September the 16th, the Reds in 11 beat the Giants 7-6. Yet another one-run win. The Reds are 35-16 in one-run games now. That is the best in the league. And they're 12-2 in extra innings. That is the best in the circuit. John Stuper got the win in relief. He's 7-5. Mark Davis took the loss. He threw a wild pitch to give the Reds a win. No game-winning RBI. Wild pitch scored Gary Reedus from third base with one man out in the bottom half of the 11th inning. And Reedus, single-handedly won that ball game for us. As, of course, Gary had won the previous game really too, salting it away with that home run, which gave us insurance in that 10-6 win over the Dodgers. Reedus, a latecomer in the game, as a pinch runner and left fielder, was 0 for 1 officially, but he walked a couple of times, scored 2 big runs, and scored the game winner, and stole 2 bases. 2 key steals in that 11th inning. He drew a walk with 1 out, then stole second and stole third. He's got 46 steals. That's just 2 away from his total from last year, and he's not nearly playing all the time either. It's amazing how he's got that many this season. And then comes in on the wild pitch by Davis. He streaks in from third base to give the Reds the win. 7 runs, 10 hits, no errors, and 12 men left on for the Reds. The Giants wasted a lot of chances as they left 14 on. They had 6 runs, 14 hits with 1 error. That was by rookie catcher Matt Noakes. They used a lot of rookies in that ball game, those Giants. Of course, they're buried in the cellar of the Western Division. Look at these people they're using. Woodard at second base, Renicky, that's Ron out in right field. They've got... Of course, we noticed Dan Dreesen's name in here. He was traded from the Expos to the Giants midstream this year. He was 1 for 5 in that game. Rob Deere out in left field. Matt Noakes behind the plate. Ricky Adams, a young shortstop, who's 1 for 6. Jim Gott was a starting pitcher. He's a youngster. Frank Williams, relief pitcher. Brad Wellman, a pinch hitter. Bobby Moore, rookie pitcher. And Joel Youngblood, of course, he's been around a while. He was the last player listed here in left field. He was 1 for 2. A home run by Chris Brown, a fine rookie third baseman for the Giants. He was 1 for 4 with his 16th home run of the season with nobody on base. The Reds had no homers. Dave Parker had the big bat for the Reds with 4 runs batted in and a 3 for 6 day. Eddie Milner, 3 for 5, knocked in none, scored 3. And, of course, as I say, Reedus, although without a hit, really won it for us with his speed in that 11th inning. Dave Parker now with 107 runs batted in to lead the league by 8 over Dale Murphy of the Braves. And another good day to raise that batting average well above 300. He's having an MVP-type season, Dave is, with his best season since 1978. Stuper 7-5 over Mark Davis 5-10 in a 3-hour, 32-minute, 11-inning ball game. Red 7, Giants 6. 13,426 saw it. Paid attendance 13,045. It was a strange move made by manager Jim Davenport in that game. That turns out to be one of his last games managed. That's his last series as manager. They've now hired Roger Craig, former Padres manager and former Tigers pitching coach, as the new Giants manager for the rest of this year and next season. Also a new GM. Tom Haller is out, and Al Rosen, former Yankee executive, is in at the helm. Also, another note along those lines, former Reds president and chief executive officer Dick Wagner is now at the helm of the Houston Astros. Can you believe somebody else picked Dick up? Well, they did. Dick Wagner to the Houston Astros as general manager, and rumor has it he might be getting Joe Morgan as manager for next season. Morgan now color commentator on the Reds television network. We'll see how things work out with the Astros next season under Dick Wagner. And let's see, what else do I have in that ball game on Monday night? Ron Oster, Wayne Krenchicki knocked in runs. Eric Davis stole a couple of bases. He's got 12. He got... Now, he was a pinch runner left fielder. He was 1 for 2, and subbing for Pete Rose, who was 0 for 1 in that game, with a couple of walks and a hit batsman, to his credit. Jim Gott, Williams, then Moore, Minton, and Davis went out for San Francisco. Davis, 3 1/3 innings, no hits, but a run to charge him with loss. Jay Tibbs started, allowed 10 hits and 5 runs in 6 innings. He was followed by John Franco, Ted Power, and John Stuper. The relievers pitched 5 innings, allowed 4 hits, only 1 run, but they walked a total of 6, but just the 1 run, and they struck out 1 batter. So the Reds win it 7-6 in extra innings, and that brings us to last night's ball game, the second anniversary of Johnny Bench Night. That's a date that I just happen to remember. Every time I see the date September 17th, I think of the big Johnny Bench Night, and I know JB would think of the same thing. He has that date affixed in his mind for life. September 17th of 83, 2 years ago, and of course 2 years later, almost on the same day, September the 11th, here in 85, it's another big, big day for a Reds individual. Of course, I'm speaking of Pete Rose and his big hit a week ago today. If he'd have done it 6 days later, it would have been on the second anniversary of the big Johnny Bench Night, when they had an all-time record crowd of 53,000 plus to see Bench honored before a game against the Houston Astros at the stadium. Bench went out and hit his final home run that he was ever to hit as a major leaguer that night. That came off of the Astros' Mike Madden in the third inning, a blast to left field on a liner for his 389th of his career. This September the 17th is a Reds winning night over the San Francisco Giants, a Tuesday night encounter at or actually Tuesday afternoon, I should say, and a business day special at 12:35. Reds 6 and the Giants 1. It was a walk-away win, a cakewalk, however you want to say it. 4 in the first inning, 2 more in the sixth, sold it away. The Giants had a run in the seventh inning to deprive Andy McGaffigan of his first shutout, probably of his career, but he does go on and get the complete game. He breaks his 3-game losing streak, gives the Reds their third straight win, and picks up his second win of the season in notching his second complete game victory. His last win was August the 1st against the Astros when he struck out 11 batters. This time he almost has that many with 10. Did not walk a batter, allowed just 1 earned run on 7 hits in the complete game outing. He reduces his ERA into the low 3s. He's done a fine job since being recalled from the AAA level. Andy McGaffigan. It's kind of a strange season when you look at all the starting pitchers for the Reds, and only one of them is above 500, and that is Tom Browning, who's well over, of course, with that 8-game winning streak. He's won 17 times. That's just one away from Soto's 18 that he won last year. But all the other starters, you look at even Ron Robinson, who's filling in for Soto now. He's under 500 with 6 straight losses, a 5-6 record. McGaffigan's under 500 at 2-3. Tibbs is well under at 8-15. And, well, who am I leaving out here? I'm leaving out, of course, our supposed ace and Mario Soto, although this year you got to believe Browning is the ace of the staff, and Soto down with that toe problem. Well, he, of course, is 3 under at 12-15. So only one starter is over 500, and yet the Reds as a team are 11 over 500. And, of course, a lot of that is due to the 12-2 record of John Franco. So there's 10 games over 500 right there. Franco just having a super year, and he's one of the best firemen in the league this season. McGaffigan had it all his way last night as he goes to 2-3 on the year with the complete game, investing Dave LaPointe. He goes out against his former team, the Giants. The Reds got him from the Expos. But he's also a former Giant and a former New York Yankee, McGaffigan. LaPointe is now 7-14, but he's got a very good earned run average. The Giants, of course, don't score any runs for him. He allowed 12 hits and 6 runs in 5 innings. Not a very good day this day for LaPointe. And then Bobby Moore came on, and then Scott Garrelts. 2 hours and 21 minutes for that game last night. The total, 6 runs, 13 hits, and an error for the Reds. The Giants had a run, 7 hits, and no errors. The Reds left 7 on base, the Giants 6. The only error was by the pitcher McGaffigan himself, who threw away a ball on a play at first base, went down as a hit and an error. The crowd was 11,521 paid last evening as the Reds close out the homestand with a back-to-back wins over the Giants. They're 9-0 against Frisco at home this year, unbelievable, and they go to 7-3 on the homestand. The Reds' home record is now a very good 42-33 for the season. They'll try to improve their road record, which is now 35 wins and 33 losses, as they kick off the 5-game trip next to the last trip of the year tonight at Atlanta. Nicky Saski, another home run last night, his 17th of the season, yesterday afternoon, I should say. He knocked in his 56th run of the year, a career high. Also career high in homers for him. Tony Perez, Buddy Bell, Dave Concepcion, Bo Diaz, also knocking in runs. Another one of those team efforts. A lot of players with 2 hits. Diaz 2 for 3, knocked in 2. Concepcion 2 for 4. Buddy Bell 2 for 4. Tony Perez 2 for 4. Nicky Saski 2 out of 4. Reedus, another starting center, was 1 for 5. Stole another base, his 47th of the year. Eric Davis 1 for 4 with a run and a steal. So good game all around as the Reds win it behind McGaffigan 6-1 on the 7-hitter. Tony Perez, the game-winning run, batted in the 4-run first inning, and that's his 4th of the year. So that takes us to tonight's contest, first of 2 against the Atlanta Braves. So The Reds try to stretch the winning streak to 4 behind Ron Robinson, who tries to snap a personal 6-game losing streak. September the 18th action coming up.
After the final out, we'll have Joe and the star of the game show. In all likelihood, he'll be visiting with the pride of Marietta, Georgia, Nicky Saskey, who homered and drove in 4 runs in the game, and then we'll run down all the scores of all the games in Major League Baseball today and tonight. 2 balls and no strikes. Runge takes ball 3. He walked him on 4 straight. So after routinely retiring Washington and Hubbard, Power extends the Atlanta 9th inning with a walk to Runge and will now face Bruce Benedict. Benedict has struck out. He's also flied out twice. Now Power getting a new baseball from Bob Engel. Benedict without a hit this season against Cincinnati. He's now 0 for 9. Pete will play behind Runge at first base as Power stretches and throws, and that one is high. Ted needing a strike and gets it. 1 ball, 1 strike on the Atlanta catcher. Boston now leading Toronto 10-0, and they're in the 7th in Detroit, where the Yankees continue to trail the Tigers 4-2. Way outside, 2 balls and a strike. Montreal over Pittsburgh 5-4 in the 7th. The Mets a run up on Chicago in the 6th inning 3-2, and the Cardinals waxing Philadelphia 7-0 in the 7th inning at Veterans Stadium. Up on the infield, and that should do it. They all race in behind the mound. Oster makes the catch, and this one belongs to the Reds. In the 9th inning, no runs, no hits, and a man left for the Braves. The Reds make it 4 wins in a row as they invade Fulton County Stadium and come out with a 7-3 victory. We'll be back in just a moment. Well, this opener in Atlanta tonight was just about a carbon copy of what we witnessed at Riverfront yesterday when the Reds came up smoking against the San Francisco Giants in the 1st inning. Against Len Barker, Eddie Milner led off the game with a walk, stole second. Pete Rose followed suit with a base on balls. And a Dave Parker single to right field loaded him up. Nicky Saskey then doubled to deep left center, making it 2-0. And Steve Shields, a rookie right-hander, came on to relieve the beleaguered Barker. 1 out later, Dave Concepcion grounded to third with another run scoring, and Bo Diaz had the first of what would be a 4-hit night as he doubled over Murphy's head in center to get Saskey in and give the Reds a 4-0 lead. Murphy homered in the bottom half of the 1st inning, and that was a big one for Dale. His 37th, a career high, and the RBI number 100 gives him that many or more for 4 consecutive seasons. But the Reds got it back in the 2nd inning when Rose and Parker had base hits. Saskey singled, and the Reds were in front by a score of 5-1. They came up with another run in the 3rd inning after the Braves scored another run in the 2nd on a Washington reaching on an error by Concepcion, a double by Glenn Hubbard to make it 5-2. The Reds scored in the 3rd inning when Concepcion reached on an error by Ramirez. Diaz and Oster singled. Robinson hit into a force play with Concepcion scoring, and the Reds were in front by 4. Atlanta got another home run in the 5th inning, again with the bases empty. This one number 5 of the year by shortstop Rafael Ramirez, and the Reds offset that in the 8th inning when Esaski hit a long home run into the lower deck and left off for Bruce Sutter to give the Reds a 7-3 lead, and that, of course, turned out to be the final. The Reds had a big night. They banged out 17 hits, committed 2 errors, and left 14 men on base, while the Braves had 5 hits, 1 error, and they stranded 5. Robinson 6-6 to win after going 8 innings before turning it over to Ted Power in the 9th, and Len Barker, who faced only 4 hitters as a Braves starter, now 2-9 with the defeat. Reds go for the sweep in this mini-series, their second 2-game series of the week, as they meet the Braves in a 5:40 beginning here tomorrow. And, of course, Tom Browning hopefully will come out of that with his 18th victory as he continues to bear down on a possible 20-win season, the winningest rookie pitcher in all of Major League Baseball, and he'll be opposed by right-hander Pascual Perez. We'll have it for you, beginning with the pregame shows on most of these same stations at 5:10. Once again, the final score tonight in a game that took 2 hours and 18 minutes to play before a crowd of 6,581. The Reds 7 and the Braves 3.
Now, the Reds keep their winning streak alive tonight by beating the Atlanta Braves 7-3 in the first of this 2-game series. The Reds have now won 4 consecutive ball games, as well as 5 of the last 6 and 7 of their last 9, as they send Bobby Wine's struggling 5th-place Braves down to their 3rd consecutive defeat, and they've lost 5 of their last 6 ball games. And they have been tattooed in numerous ball games of late. They have had a miserable homestand. This was the 10th game, or the 11th game, on their homestand, and they are 2-9 on that stand. Well, the Reds get off to a good start on this 5-game road trip and will hope to sweep a 2-game series for the second time this week, as Marty Brenneman just pointed out. The Reds swept the Giants 2 at home and now look to sweep the Braves 2 on the road. And with Nick Esaski in the lineup, that fella can single-handedly defeat a ball club. He would have tonight had the Reds got no more runs other than the 4 he drove in. The Reds would have won the game 4-3. A big 4-run first inning for the second consecutive day, as Marty said. 4 in the bottom of the first at Riverfront yesterday afternoon. 4 in the top of the first against Len Barker and company in this ball game at Atlanta this evening. So a good day at the old orchard, as Joe Nuxall would say, as the Reds win it. 7 runs on 17 hits. That ties a season's high in base hits for one game by the club this year. Right now, I want to fill in some gaps here. Take a look at my personal data for my game scored this year, as well as some trade notations and some release notices and waiver releases, etc., that have occurred over the last few weeks. I will periodically update all the folks out there in my vast audience as to what's going on trade-wise with other ball clubs during the course of the season. I haven't done it a whole lot this year, but we'll try to fill them in maybe for the final time this season. I should have one more installment of this to come in one of my remaining 7 games after this one. My 33rd game of the year is my 2nd consecutive win, and the 4th Reds win in my last 6 scored. And my 19th win of the year, that's just 3 away from last year's win total. My record goes 5 up on the 500 mark at 19-14. The winning percentage is at .576 against the Atlanta Braves, a perfect 4-0 in all those games at Atlanta. My road record is now 12-7 in one-run games, 6-3 at night, 14-9 since the All-Star break, 7-6 in the month of September, 2-2. So that's my records for my 33rd game here in '85. And a nice perfect record against the Braves. That's unusual. The Reds have not played that well against the Braves the last few years, but this season, not bad at all. The Reds are 8-6 against Atlanta, including a very good 6-2 at Atlanta. A lot of that due to Nick Esaski's big bat. He just loves to play at Fulton County Stadium. Another homer, a double, and 4 RBIs tonight to stop a slump that he was in. It'd be nice if he could play at Atlanta every time he got into a slump. He had been just 2 for his previous 19 trips, and only 8 out of his last 53 until producing with a game-winning double in the first inning off Len Barker this evening. Barker didn't get a batter out, and that is something that Bobby Wine didn't like to see, because their pitching staff has really, been racked with injuries of late. We understand several pitchers were not available to pitch tonight. Craig McMurtry, Terry Forster, and one other one were down and out. They weren't going to pitch at all no matter what. And, what happens? Their starter doesn't even get a batter out. And so they had to dip into the bullpen 3 times, go to Shields, Dedman, and Suter. That's unusual. Suter coming on in a game that they were behind in by 3 or 4 runs at the time. He gave up 1 run. He allowed a home run to Esaski, in fact, to cap off the scoring in the 8th inning. So it's unusual that he would come on in a game that is not really a tight one, or it's really unusual that he pitches in a game that is not tied or the Braves don't have the lead. He's usually one of those specialty relievers. Comes on just in order to get the saves. He's got 23 of them this year, but really it's been a dismal year for Suter, earned run average-wise. And, of course, it's been a lousy year for the Braves. They finished in a tie for second last year, albeit it was 12 games behind the front-running team, the Padres. But still, they were tied for second. And, of course, just 3 years ago, they won the whole ball of wax in the West. So it's really been kind of a quick collapse for Ted Turner's Braves. They've had a shake-up in the dugout, of course, with Bobby Wine coming in favor of Eddie Haas, who was fired in his first year as manager of the team on August the 26th. And speaking of that move, Bobby Wine put in as manager the former coach for the Phillies. He used to be the same team with Pete Rose, the Reds player manager, when they were with the Phillies together. I want to start with that notation and go right on through yesterday with these trading transactions and these baseball notes. Eddie Haas fired and Bobby Wine put in as manager on the 26th of last month. We've also got a note on Freddie Tolliver. Of course, he goes to the Philadelphia Phillies in part of the Bo Diaz trade August the 27th. Cesar Cedeno traded to the Cardinals from the Reds for a minor league outfielder August the 29th. Cesar's been burning up with the bat since going over there. He's been on fire. He had a 5-for-5 game the other day against the Cubs at Wrigley Field. He said 4 or 5 homers already since going over, including a pinch-hit grand slam to help the Cardinals to a victory. He scored the only run and knocked in the only run with a solo homer and a 1-0 win the other day against the Mets. So Cedeno doing a fine job for St. Louis and subbing for the injured Jack Clark. Maybe they don't miss Clark all that much. With Cedeno in there doing the job. Cliff Johnson of the Texas Rangers returns to Toronto as he goes there in a trade for 3 players to be named later, August the 29th. So Johnson didn't spend much time away from the Blue Jays. He was a free agent and signed with the Rangers and now back with the Blue Jays. And Billy Madlock has been traded by the Pirates to the Dodgers for 3 players to be named on August the 30th. The players' names were released a little bit later as R.J. Reynolds, Sid Bream, and Cecil Espy. Doug Bear, a former Red, goes back to the Cardinals as a free agent September the 2nd. He was released earlier by Detroit. Omar Moreno was signed on with Kansas City as a free agent. Steve Nicosia has gone to Toronto as a free agent. Don Sutton to California from the Oakland A's for 2 players to be named on September the 10th. A key trade for the Angels. They want to bolster their pitching staff for the stretch run. They've also added, of course, John Candelaria, George Hendrick, and Al Holland over the last month. Texas's Dave Stewart has been traded to the Phillies for a minor league pitcher, Rick Surhoff, on September 13th. Rod Scurry, a lefty reliever who has always been with the Pirates, has been sold to the New York Yankees. That was just 5 days ago. And 3 days ago, on the 15th, Joe Niekro, the veteran knuckleballer for the Astros, was traded to the New York Yankees as he is rejoining his brother, Phil Niekro, who has twice now failed in his bid to get his 300th career victory. A pitcher earlier did that this season, and the former Red Tom Seaver for the Chicago White Sox, career win 300. So Joe Niekro and Phil back together, and rumors have it that they'll be back together with the Braves next year. This Braves team we're playing tonight, that's a possibility. Maybe Ted Turner would bring Phil back as player manager, something of that nature. We hear rumors to that effect, and Joe also coming back to pitch, so that's possible. But they are teamed once again. They were former teammates with the Braves early in their career. Of course, then they went their separate ways, and Joe has had good success with the Astros. I think he's now the winningest pitcher in Astro history. He earned that accomplishment this season. But now he's been traded. The first time since 1975 he's been with a team other than Houston. He goes to the Yankees for 2 players to be named. So Joe Niekro and Rod Scurry go into the Yankees to bolster their pitching staff. And Steve Howell has been released again for the second time this season. The Steve Howell saga continues. Well, he's back on the drugs, I guess. He admitted to taking cocaine the other day. He asked for and was given his release by his new team, the Minnesota Twins, on September 17, just yesterday. He missed a whole series against the Cleveland Indians last week. He said he was visiting his sick grandfather, I believe, but that was a pack of lies, and he admitted to that later. And so that's really a sad story, but what are you going to do with that guy? He's just, I think, 3 strikes and you're out, and he's had about 5 or 6 strikes to his credit against him in his career. There's no reason for not shaping up by now. So Steve Howe released again. Who knows what's going to happen with that left-hander, who was the Rookie of the Year in 1980. What a waste of talent. And, of course, Roger Craig in with San Francisco as the new manager of that ball club over Jim Davenport. Another first-year manager is canned in the Western Division, like Eddie Haas of the Braves. The same fate has, befallen Jim Davenport. Well, there's a transactions update. I'll have more on Side B. Well, as promised, I'm back here on Side B. More baseball talk coming up. So we have to take a look at this ball game blow by blow. A lot of highlights coming up as the Reds maul the Atlanta Braves tonight. They out-hit them 17-5, outscore them 7-3. The second time this year we've had that many hits, 17 in one game. We did it just recently, I think a week or two ago. The Reds left a bunch of people on base, but still more than enough runs crossed the plate to come up with this victory. Our fourth consecutive win. That's the longest winning streak in a little while. Let's have a look at this date in Reds history. Let's cover all the bases. I took a look at the transactions, my records for my season, and, let's have a look in Reds history. I look back on September the 18th. On this date in 1897, that was a couple of years ago, Cy Young hurled a no-hitter against the Reds to lead the Cleveland Spiders to a 6-0 win in Cleveland. Interesting thing about the Spiders, they are notorious for having the worst record ever accumulated in one big league season way back in the 1890s. It might have been that year. And Cy Young was pitching on that team. Now, that's kind of hard to believe, but those Spiders had something like a 20-120 record or something one season. It was unbelievable. And I think that might have been earlier than that. That might have even been just one of the very first years that the league was formed. Of course, the American League formed a little bit later than the National in 1876, so it must have been around 1880 or something. But that was an unbelievably poor record for Cleveland. Of course, this kind of looks strange. The Reds are playing Cleveland. Of course, the Reds in the National League. Cleveland has been in the American and the National League, so they switched leagues sometime in the past, apparently, because the Cincinnati Reds have never been an American League ball club, so that's kind of strange. But the Cleveland Spiders had Cy Young pitch a no-hitter for them on this date in 1897. In 1936, Larry McPhail resigned as general manager of the Reds. On this date in 1940, the Reds clinched the National League pennant with a 4-3 win in 13 innings against the Philadelphia Phillies at Philadelphia. Must have been at Connie Mack Stadium in 1940. I don't know if it was called that at that time. And, of course, Connie Mack Stadium preceded Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. And it was at Philadelphia on this date in 1940 the Reds clinched the pennant and went on ultimately to win the World Series. And that was to be, little did anyone know, their final World Championship title up until 1975 when they beat the Red Sox. 12 years ago yesterday, on September 17 of 1973, Pete Rose was in the news again. He connected for his 220th hit of the year to break the Reds' single-season mark of 219 hits set by Cy Seymour in 1905. Rose finished the year with an all-time record for the Reds of 230 hits. Unbelievable. 230 hits that year for Pete Rose in 1973. On this date last year, the Reds played the Padres at home and lost 2-0 in front of 10,000 fans. Their 88th loss of the season. They were 21.5 back at that time with only 63 wins. They were 25 under 500, and this year on this date we're 12 over 500 for the first time in 4 years, and needing only 3 more wins to assure ourselves of a 500 season for the first time since 81. So what a difference a year makes. Last year out of it, of course, down in the 5th place. This season firmly entrenched up into 2nd place and bearing down on those Dodgers. We gained another game tonight. The Dodgers lost 7-2 to the Astros at Los Angeles. So the Reds are now just 6.5 back, the closest they've been to first place since September the 2nd. And, well, you never know. Strange things have happened in baseball. Maybe the Reds can catch the Dodgers down the stretch. We've only got 3 left with them, the final 3 games of the year, but that could be a big series if the Reds can hang tough in the next couple of weeks. But in any event, 1st or 2nd or even 3rd place, we hope for 1st, and at worst 2nd. Well, when you look back on this year, it's going to be a very satisfying season and gratifying season, you got to believe, for Pete Rose and company, and all Reds fans, me included, here in 1985. Who would have thought that they would be in the thick of the race this deep into the season? It's just been amazing, and Pete Rose, more than anybody else, has had Now, the most to do with that, with managing the ball club and, of course, playing the way he has with that aggressive style that he's always exhibited in his 23 years in the big leagues. That's rubbed off on all the players, the winning atmosphere. And, boy, has that paid off, having Rose come back as player manager. What a move made by Bob Howsam, who's now the late general manager. I don't mean to say he's passed away, but he's still alive and kicking. But I should say he's late of the Reds organization. At least as far as the general manager position is concerned. He stepped down on July 1 in favor of Bill Burgish, and boy, he's made some fine deals too, getting us Buddy Bell and Bo Diaz, also apparently engineering that Max Venable trade, and he's turned out to be the best pinch hitter on the team. So several good trades made by the Reds Brain Trust here in '85. We made 4 trades this year. We made 6 of them last year. That's 10 player transactions in the last 2 years, just within the season. That's many more than they've made in the Hot Stove League during the winter, either of the last 2 years combined. They didn't do anything last winter, so it seems like all the trading activity has come after the year has been underway. We'll see what happens this upcoming winter, but I got to believe it might be a stand-pat situation, except for maybe wanting to get, I don't know, another starter, another middle relief pitcher or something, maybe to take the place of a Joe Price or a Frank Pastore, who seem to be injured all the time. And other than that, looks like this ball club is set for 1986 with that catcher that we wanted, and Bo Diaz. He's now batting .280 as a Red. He's been sensational of late, doing a fine job behind the plate, not committing many errors. And we got that solid catcher, everyday catcher that we have been looking for since Johnny Bench left a few years back. Okay, let's have a look at the lineups now quickly. For the Reds, Eddie Milner leads off in center field. He checks into the game with a batting average of .256. Pete Rose, the new all-time hits leader. He's right now at 4,196 and counting. He needs only one more hit to get to 100 on the year for the 23rd consecutive season. He had 2 hits tonight, was on base 3 times. He started out the day at .265. He's now walked 75 times with 99 hits on the year and a .267 average entering tomorrow's game. So he's having a pretty good year. His first full season as a Red since 1978. Of course, his first full year as a manager in the major leagues. He's had the Reds right in the thick of things almost all season. Dave Parker's out in right field. He's having a sensational year, as everyone knows. .308 average, 27 homers, 107 runs batted in. The 107 RBIs represent the high for any Red since 1978 when George Foster had 120. The 27 homers are the second most Parker's ever had. If he can hit 4 more, it'll be a new career high for him. And it's also the most homers by a Red in some 5 seasons. Actually 6 years, in '79 when Foster had 30, so sensational year for Dave. He's also tied a Reds record for game-winning RBIs with 16. That only dates back to 1980 when that became official. He's got 38 doubles, the most by a Red since 1980 when Ray Knight had 39, so a lot of highs for Parker. And you look at him and he's setting Reds highs back through the last several years. So he is having a sterling season, possible MVP for him right there. What with the Reds being in the thick of things, and you look at how much he has meant to the ball club, he certainly has. You take Parker out of the lineup, and you don't know really where we would be. So Parker is followed by Nicky Saski, who's had a hot bat tonight, although was in a bit of a slump entering the game, down to .245. 17 homers and 56 RBIs. Next is Buddy Bell at third base. Bell around .205, or not around, he was at .205 at game time. He had 9 RBIs in his last 10 games, so still sticking just around that 200 mark. We'd like to see him hit for a higher average. He's got 4 homers, has driven in 24, not bad there. Next is Davey Concepcion, batting .252 with a 3-game hitting streak, which was stopped tonight. Bo Diaz, the catcher, batting .240. He's now got a 4-game hitting streak. He's got 51 hits on the year, 35 of those with the Reds since the August trade. He's now hitting .254 on the season, .280 as a Red, up from .258. He had his first 4-hit game as a Red tonight, 2 doubles and 2 singles. Was technically on base 5 out of 5 times. Next is Ron Oster, the second baseman. He's having a great year, too. His best ever at .303, 27 RBIs, or make that 31 RBIs, and a home run. And Ron Robinson, the starter, he's taking the place of Mario Soto, who's missing a start for the second straight time because of an injury. Robinson only .071 on the batting average. and he got his first Major League RBI tonight. For the Braves, Milt Thompson led off out in left field. Next is Rafael Ramirez at shortstop, 253, 4 homers, 55 RBIs. Dale Murphy in center field hitting third. He got into triple figures in RBIs tonight with his 37th home run, a new career high. He had 36 homers each of the last 3 years, and finally gets over the hump to 37 with a blast to right field tonight. He is an MVP candidate like Parker on the other side of the fence. Parker and Murphy, the only 2 players to knock in 100 in the league this year, with Murphy now at exactly 100, a 295 batting average. Of course, Parker does lead the league in RBIs and 2 base hits, and is up in the top 3 or 4 in home runs, and in the top 10 in batting average, and second in the league in game winners. Just a sensational season, and Murphy up there in most of those categories as well. He leads the league in home runs and is second in RBIs. And he's in the top 20 in batting average. Batting fourth at first base is Bob Horner. He's having a pretty good year. Had suffered through injuries the previous 2 or 3 seasons, coming back strong here at 85 to bat 281 with 24 homers and 84 runs batted in. And aside from the poor record for the Braves, they do have some pretty good individual statistics from the 3, 4, and 5 batters. Claudell Washington also not batting too badly, although the run production is down for him. He has hit 13 homers, 37 RBIs, and a 279 average for Washington. And then you got Horner and Murphy, who combine for a total of 61 home runs and 184 runs batted in. Not bad for the 3 and 4 batters. Washington is batting 5th, and then Glenn Hubbard in the number 6 position. He's having an off season at 230. 5 homers, he's driven in 36. Next in the order is Paul Runge, the 3rd baseman. 207, a homer, 2 RBI, subbing for Ken Oberkfell tonight. Batting 8th is the catcher Bruce Benedict. They've had Benedict back there this season, of course, along with Rick Cerone, former Yankee and Cleveland Indian and Toronto Blue Jay. In his first year in the National League, he's not doing all that sensational. Although against the Reds, Cerone has played very well. But Benedict in there tonight, and he's now 0 for 10 against the Reds with an 0 for 4 tonight. 222 average, no homers, and 20 RBIs. He's really gone downhill the last couple of years, Benedict has. In fact, he had his catching berth wrested from him by Alex Trevino last year, remember? Trevino now with San Francisco. They've had a lot of catchers the last few seasons. Matt Sinatro in there, Larry Owen also. And Johnny Rabb is another newcomer to them. He's an outfielder catcher. They got him for Trevino early this season. And Benedict getting a rare start in the number 8 position. Batting 9th, Len Barker, the pitcher who did not get a batter out this evening. Let's take a look at things. In the top of the first inning, a big 4 spot immediately on the board. And Ron Robinson has a nice, comfortable lead before he ever goes to the mound. The Reds score in their first 3 trips to the plate, getting 9 hits in that period. The first inning opens up with a 4-pitch walk to Eddie Milner. He then steals a base. That's our only steal of the game, the 144th for the team, and that's the 10th straight steal without being caught for Reds runners. For Milner, he's second on the team with 29 stolen bases in 41 attempts. He's in scoring position for Pete Rose, who is looking for career hit number 4195 here. Instead, he takes a walk on 4 pitches. So 8 balls and no strikes thrown by Barker. He's immediately in hot water. On the first pitch to Parker, he wraps out a single to right field. It was hit so hard that Milner could not score. Actually, Milner stumbled rounding third and was unable to come in. Otherwise, Parker would have had number 108 right there. And Parker had 3 hits, but no RBIs tonight. He was up with the bases loaded a time or 2 this evening. Did not produce in those final 3 trips, but still his batting average goes up to .310. He's now got a 4-game hitting streak with that base hit, and has hit safely in 15 out of 17 and 20 of his last 23 games. He now has 2 more hits than he did all of last year, with 175 on this season. That's up among the top 3 or 4 in the league. 565 at-bats, a .535 slugging average. Just go on and on about Dave. We talked about him last year at length, having a great year. This season, I guess par excellence, a sensational year for David Gene Parker. He's played in all but 2 or 3 games this season also. His stamina has been outstanding. He hasn't been hurt at all this year. So we got the bases loaded immediately for Nick Esaski. And, well, maybe he could crunch a grand slam, I was thinking. He hit one fairly well, but it didn't quite get out of the ballpark. Nick does have a grand slam earlier this year, coming against the Mets. He owns 3 career slams, and the way he hits at Atlanta, you look for maybe a home run every time up from him. He had one his final trip tonight. So Esaski starts the fireworks here as he drills one for a 2-bagger. We'll plug it in here off of the Reds network, starting with this a Saskey base hit, and we'll hear how the Reds score 4 in the first.
Runners take their leads at every base as Barker brings it back, and Nick swings and hits one hard back into deep left center field. That ball's going to be at the base of the fence. Milner scores. Rose comes in. Parker to third. Nick to second. 2-run double, and boy, he hit a rocket shot to deep left center. Murphy just turned and headed back toward the wall, and the Reds lead it 2-0. Bouncing ball hit to third behind the bag. Parker will score. The throw from Runge in time, and Nick moves on to third. So the Reds get their third run as Concepcion hits a high chop to third. He's thrown out. Parker scores. Nick goes to third base, and the 2-out batter will be catcher Bo Diaz. Here's a shot hit to center field. Murphy going back, still on the move, cannot get it. It's over his head to the wall and straight away center. Nick comes in to make it a 4-run first inning. And Diaz hits a shot to center field that Murphy had no play on. He gets a double.
Well, not a bad way to start off this ball game. For the second straight day, we get 4 in the first inning. And that is always nice for the starting pitcher to see the runs go on the board early. So a walk to Milner, walk to Rose, single by Parker, double to left center by Saskey. For Nick, that's his 19th double of the year. That ties him with Dave Concepcion for third on the team. That drives in 2 runs, gives him a total of 58 on the year, and that turns out to be his 8th game-winning RBI, his first one there that drove in Milner. Milner and Rose score. Parker goes to third, and that's it for Barker. Manager Wine comes out rather slowly and dejectedly to the mound. He's not happy to have to take out his starter here. He wanted a good outing from him, while with their pitching staff being injury-riddled right now, apparently. Has to go to the pen in the first inning. And he brings on a right-hander in Steve Shields, who has faced us a couple of times previously this year in starting roles. I remember scoring him in one of those Reds wins that I've done over the Braves this season. He comes on to pitch the rest of this first inning. He doesn't have much luck. After 2 were out, he gave up a couple of base runners, one on an intentional walk. After he got Bell to hit a fly ball to right field, Concepcion's ground ball to third, as you heard, got a run in. So a runner at third base. And 3 runs in, 2 out for Bo Diaz, and he smoked one to dead center over the head of Murphy for a 2-base hit. And for Bo, that's his 5th double since joining the ball club, his 10th of the year. He had 5 earlier with the Phillies. And Diaz has now hit safely in 4 straight and 19 of his last 23. He had a 13-game hitting streak earlier this season, the longest of his career. That was all with Cincinnati, so he's done a fine job of late at the bat. He's hitting well above 350 over those last 23 games. A double to center field to knock in Saskey from third base. And for Bo, that is his 10th run batted in since joining the club, and his 26th overall this season. So that makes it a 4-run inning, all runs charged to Barker. So Barker faces 4 batters. They all cross the plate or touch the pay station, if you will. So we get 2 doubles and a single in the inning, and throw in 3 walks. 9 men come to the plate. Oster has walked intentionally to get to Ronnie Robinson, who has just 1 hit this year. He had a line drive to second, almost had his second hit. Hubbard picked it off to end this big inning. So 4 runs, 3 hits, no errors, and 2 men are left on base. In the bottom of the first inning, the Braves get 1 run back on a 2-out solo home run, a no-doubter hit to right center by Dale Murphy. A new career high in homers with 37. That gives him his 100th RBI, the 4th consecutive season he's had triple digits in runs batted in. And, of course, he's a 2-time MVP. He won the MVP award in 82 and 83. Another fine year last year for Atlanta, receiving some MVP votes as well. And he'll add some more to his totals this season. I don't think he'll win the MVP award, but with the Braves buried in 5th place, I think Parker's got a much better shot at it than does Murph. But Murphy having another sensational season is amazing. He does this year in, year out. He's been one of the top run producers, most prolific home run hitters in the major leagues since about 1979, which was one of his first years with the ball club playing regularly. He's a former catcher. He's played first base, center, left, and right, all on a regular basis during his career. He's had 36 homers, 36, 36, and now 37 in the last 4 years, and each one of those years he's knocked in 100 runs. The first National League player to knock in 104 straight years since Steve Garvey did it from 1978 to 81, I believe Marty said on the radio tonight. So first time in 4 years that that has happened. That home run went well up into the seats out in right center off of Ron Robinson. And that made it a 4-1 game after Thompson had hit the first pitch on the ground to shortstop. Ramirez struck out swinging. Murphy took Robinson deep, and then Horner on a 3-2 pitch fly to center. 1 run, 1 hit. The Reds get the run back to one of their own in the top of the second inning. After a first pitch grounder to second hit by Eddie Milner, Rose came up with a single into left center field. That was his 98th of this season. Then Dave Parker, a base hit into center field. Rose rambled into third base. The throw went to third. Parker tried to get to second and was cut down. 8-5-4 on that out play. So runner at third base, 2 out for Nicky Saskey. And for the second time in as many innings, he knocks somebody in.
He grabs this one up the middle, and it is into center field. Ramirez reached for it, but it was by him, and Rose scores, and Nick has driven in his third run. He's 2 for 2, and it's now 5-1 as the Reds get the 1 run back as a result of Murphy's first inning home run.
What is it about the confines of Atlanta Fulton County Stadium that brings out the best in one Nicky Saskey? Maybe it's because it's near his home, and he has a lot of fan support down there. I guess a lot of his family and friends on hand for each game at Atlanta. He is from Marietta, Georgia, and resides there. And then maybe that's why he does so well in that Georgia city. But he sure does hit well at Atlanta. He's got over a 400 lifetime batting average in Atlanta with 7 home runs to his credit in just 2.5 years since coming up in July of '83 from AAA, at that time Indianapolis. In fact, his first major league homer was at that place, Atlanta. And incredibly, it was an inside-the-park homer with all the power that he possesses. You would think it might be an upper deck shot someplace, but had one inside the park to center that Murphy could not catch. July 1st of '83. The next day came back with a blast outside the fences for his second of his career. So there's 2 of his homers in Atlanta right there, his first 2 that he's hit in the majors. He had 12 that year, came back with 10 last year, and now has a total of 18 with a 1 he hit tonight. So he's been in double figures each season. And of course, he's having a much better year this year than last. Career highs in homers and RBIs and game winners. Last year batted just 193 and in somewhat limited action. It was limited action this year up until the time they got Buddy Bell. Decided to move Saskey to left field, and that's turned out to be a very good move. Kind of reminds you of another situation, left field to third base maneuvering, that Sparky Anderson did back in 1975. And I don't know if you could put this in the same class, or maybe the same magnitude as that big switch made in '75 when Pete Rose moved from left field into third base to make room for George Foster and all that power that his bat possessed. And I guess maybe sort of the same thing this year, the same positions. As they got Bell in, they wanted to have Saskey's bat in the lineup, so they put Nick out in left field as an experiment. It worked out. He hasn't made an error there this season. He's done a fine job, and his confidence at the plate looks a little bit brighter. Although I should say he was in quite of a deep slump entering this series. With 8 hits in his previous 53 trips, that's only a 122 pace. But I guess Atlanta brings out the best in Nick, and he does have some pretty good run production figures for a player that has not nearly played the equivalent of a full season. He probably will get to 20 homers this year, so he and Parker will be the first duo to have 20 homers since Johnny Bench and George Foster in 1980. Bench had 24, Foster 25, so that's the first time in 5 years that's happened. So we're setting all kinds of highs for the decade of the 80s this season, and a very, very good 85 campaign. Saskey's doing his part. A base hit into center field that just did wiggle in there. A single with 2 out, and Nick's 59th run batted in of the year. In his third in 2 innings. Then Buddy Bell hit a fly ball to right field to end this frame. The play on Parker, he's thrown out 8-5-4. That turns out to be a big one. Otherwise, this is a bigger inning. We get a run on 3 hits off of Shields. No errors, 1 runner left on. The Braves get another run in the bottom of the second. So each team scored in the first 2 innings. The Reds made it 3 for 3 with a run on 3 hits in the third. In the second inning, this run is unearned off of Robinson. On the first pitch, Washington grounded to shortstop. Davey booted it. And that goes down as an error. His 10th, or his, I was going to say his 10th error of the year, but that's not right. Dave Parker later in the game made his 10th error in the outfield. This is about the 20th or 22nd or 23rd for Davey. Hubbard then doubled into right center field. I was surprised Washington scored standing up, but he did. Comes in all the way from first base as Hubby gets his 37th RBI of the year, and that makes it a 5-2 game. 2-bagger for Hubbard. That's their only double of the game. Then Runge struck out trying to check his swing. Benedict struck out on a full cut. Then there's a wild pitch to move Hubbard to third base. then a walk to the pitcher. That's the only walk Robinson allowed, and incredibly, it was to the pitcher. So oftentimes you see that. The only walk in a game is to the opposing pitcher. For some reason, they can't find the strike zone against their opposite number. He walked Shields on a 3-2 pitch to put him at first and third, 2 out, 1 in for Thompson. He had a ground ball to shortstop, and that ended up a 6-4 force of Shields to end the inning. 1 run, 1 hit, 1 error, and 2 men are left on. The Reds get another run in the third inning. Let's listen.
Here's the 0-2. Swung on a high chopper. Runge behind the bag, and he'll step on the bag at third to get the force of Bo Diaz. And Robinson at first base as Concepcion scores to make it a 6-2 ball game, and we'll pause for station identification.
So the pitcher, Ron Robinson, helped his own cause here in the third inning with a fielder's choice grounder hit to third base with the bases loaded and nobody out. Now this run is unearned that we get here in the third off of Shields. To start it off, Concepcion reached on an error like Washington did and eventually scored in the second inning to lead off. Davies' ground ball to shortstop erred by Rafael Ramirez. It's a horrible infield, though, and you got to give... you got to really, I guess, feel for the infielders because they're having a tough time playing on that rock-hard surface at Atlanta. It's usually like that. Of course, I guess the Falcons play there as well, so that doesn't lend now for a smooth surface out there. And this ball kind of came up on Rafi and couldn't make the play. Davies on board. Diaz a single to left field, his second hit. Oster a base hit into left field. That loaded him up. Davies stopped at third. And Robinson a ground ball on an 0-2 pitch to third. And Runge looked to home. He probably would have had a play on Concepcion, who, of course, doesn't run all out. And they probably would have had him, but instead he stepped on third. And the play at first base not nearly in time on Robinson, so it's a fielder's choice to third base. A run scored. Oster went to second for Robinson, his first RBI, and his first major league run batted in on that ground ball. So that made it a 6-2 ball game. Eddie Milner then followed with an infield base hit to shortstop. I tell you, we had a lot of chinkers out there. In this one, a lot of infield singles among the 17. And we had tonight an infield base hit by Diaz in the ninth, infield base hit by Bell in the eighth, infield base hit by Rose in the fifth, and this infield base hit by Milner in the third. So for the infield variety, and possibly some more that I missed. A lot of hits in this one, of course, as we raised the team batting average to 254, up 2 points. That's now fifth best in the league. So the bases are loaded again. Pete Rose up there, looking to do damage against the Braves. He hits into a double play instead, 4-6-3. That ends the inning. But we got a run on 3 hits, 1 error, 2 runners left on. In the bottom of the third, the Braves can't make it 3 for 3 in scoring. They had a run in the first, a run in the second. They're out in order in the third against Robinson. A fly ball to right by Ramirez. A ground ball to second by Murphy. A first pitch ground ball hit to second by Horner and a very quick and easy frame. In the top of the fourth, it's the first time the Reds don't score. This is against Shields again, who went 5. And really for the starter, Barker. Parker has his first hit, or make that his third straight hit, I should say. His third hit in 4 innings, a single to center. That raises his average to 311 with that base hit. His 175th of the year, 2 more than he had all of last season. Oh, what a year. Then Nicky Saski hit a deep drive to center. Looked like it might be. And if I were Harry Carey, we'd be saying might be, could be, and no. It's caught by Dale Murphy at the fence. Right up against the boards. Murph made the catch. Saski, one of those patented towering flies that just missed. Oh, so many of those we've seen that he just misses on, but he does connect and goes deep in the 8th inning. So 1 out, 1 on for Buddy Bell. He draws a base on balls. He does that a lot. Then Concepcion hit a warning track fly to right fielder Washington. 2 out, 2 on for Diaz. He hits into a force play short to second. No runs a hit. We left a couple on. We left runners on in all innings except 6 and 8. In the bottom half of the 4th inning against Robinson, Washington starts it off by hitting a full count pitch up the middle and into center field for a single. Then Hubbard hit a fly ball to right fielder Parker. Runge looked at strike 3. Benedict hit a fly ball to right. And that was all. No runs a hit and 1 left. In the top of the 5th, final inning for Shields, rookie right-hander. Oster is on for the 3rd straight time. Boy, he's been getting on base a lot lately. 4 times out of 5 he was on with 2 walks, 2 hits in this one. Although I'm going to have to contradict myself, that previous statement, because he'd only had 2 hits in his previous 17 times up. Although he has had a lot of walks lately. That's what I mean by, of course, getting on base. And as Pete says, well, a walk is as good as a hit. And as 99% of the time, that walk is going to come around to score, it seems. And Ronnie did break out of a mini 2-for-17 slump with a 2-for-3 day tonight and 2 walks. He's now hit safely in all but 3 of his last 17 games. And is having a great year. He opens this up with a single into right field. Is moved up on a first pitch sacrifice bunt laid down by Ronnie Robinson. Ron has a pretty good total of 4 sac bunts. This one goes 1-4. Then Milner draws a walk on a 3-2 pitch. Pete Rose on the first pitch chopped an infield single to deep shortstop, and he's safe at first with his second hit of the game. So he's just 1 away from 100 on the year, and he's now just a total of 4 away from number 4,200. That puts him 5 up on Ty Cobb's record. Of course, he's going the other way now. He's ahead of Cobb and moving farther. Well, not up the list because he's already number 1, but he's moving farther out ahead of Ty with every base hit and setting a new record each time, of course. So the bases are loaded for Dave Parker, and again a player hits into a double play with the bases loaded. Rose did it in the third, Parker does it here, and again it's 4-6-3, so Dave has a chance to do some serious damage and up that RBI count, but he can't do it. No runs, 2 hits, and 2 men left on. The Braves turn 3 DPs tonight. They lead the world in double plays. I think they got 180 some this year. The Reds and the Braves were tied at one point this year for first with 65. The Reds only have 128. They've fallen way behind the pace of the Braves. That's about the only thing they're doing right this year, but they have plenty of opportunity because of all those base runners the Braves pitchers are putting on this season. In the bottom of the 5th inning, the Braves get a run on a 2-out solo homer, just like in the first. This one's by Rafael Ramirez, his 5th of the year. It goes to left field. That came after pinch hitter Albert Hall struck out swinging, batting for Shields. On the first pitch, Thompson had a ground ball to shortstop. Ramirez went deep, and then Dale Murphy struck out swinging. 1 run, 1 hit. In the 6th inning, off of a new pitcher, it's right-hander Jeff Dedman, who gets the Reds in order for the first time in the game in the 6th inning. Esaski on the first pitch hit a ground ball to third. Bell grounded to second, and Concepcion grounded to shortstop, each fielder getting a chance. That was a good inning for Dedman. In the latter half of the 6th, against Robinson still, they get a 1-out single by Washington, 3rd straight time he's been on. That goes to right field. He then moves to second base on an error by Parker. That was after Horner foul-popped one to the catcher. Washington hit a 3-2 pitch and is on second base with 1 out for Hubbard. On the first pitch, he had a fly ball to left field, and then Runge on the first pitch had a fly ball to center, so they were aggressive, but couldn't get anything done with 2 skyouts. No runs, 1 hit, 1 error, and 1 is left on. In the 7th inning, the Reds threaten again here against Dedman. They get the first man on with a double. Diaz, his 3rd hit, a first-pitch double into the gap in right center field. That's his 6th double since joining the Reds and his overall 11th of the year. But we don't get him in. On the first pitch, Oster hit a ground ball to shortstop, and here's another first-pitch ground ball hit by Robinson. It goes back to the pitcher. Runner at second, 2 out now for Eddie Milner. He does get a hit, but it doesn't get Diaz in. A single to left, but Diaz, with the terrible speed, is forced to hold up at third base, and he's left on as Rose hit a wicked liner caught by the second baseman Hubbard going off to his left. Rose vying for his 3rd hit, came up short. No runs, 2 hits, and a couple left on. In the bottom of the 2nd, Robinson gets him out in order, and he makes it 5 in a row, and 7 out of the last 8 being retired. As Benedict hit a fly ball to center, Albert Hall, the new left fielder, was called out on strikes, didn't like the call, and then pinch hitter Chris Chambliss hit one right on the button, but right at Eddie Milner in center to end the inning. In the top of the 8th, the Reds get their final run. They cap this off, a 1-out solo blast by Nick Esaski. It's his 9 at Atlanta. He's the star of the game, as he had 3/4 of the cycle in this game, did not strike out, and that's a key point to be made, because when he doesn't strike out, you know he had a pretty good game more often than not. This is the first time in the last 6 games he has not struck out, and only the 4th time in the last 17 games he has failed to go down on strikes. Let's listen in. The count is no balls and 2 strikes. Nick Esaski puts one into orbit.
And the pitch. And a drive. There's number 18. He hits that ball up into the blue seats in straightaway left field. Home run number 2 this year by Nick off of Bruce Sutter, and Cincinnati leads at 7-3. Well, I'll tell you what, whatever slump he was in, Fulton County Stadium has been the tonic for a rapid turnaround.
No way we can disguise him when he gets in a slump and we're not coming in here, is there? And send him down here with
Be nice. Here's Buddy Bell, and the pitch is taken up and in for a ball.
That's a 1-out solo homer to straightaway left field hit by Nick Esaski, and he touched up a Bruce Sutter 0-2 pitch. You're not supposed to make a pitch that fat to a hitter like Esaski when you're out in front 2 strikes, but he did. And Nick, well, he let that... he let his wrists do the talking, I guess, there, as he just had the quick snap with the bat, and out it went. Home run to left field for his 18th A new career high for him by 6. Gives him a total of 60 runs batted in and 4 for the game. That's a high for him this season. He had a single, double, home run, fly ball, and a deep fly that almost went out in the 4th also. And the only time they got him out with ease was that ground ball he hit the 3rd and the 6th, the first batter that Dedman faced. So Bruce Sutter is touched up by Esaski for the second time, and I've scored both of them. He had a game-winning shot back on June 16th at Atlanta. That was in the last inning, a big towering homer to left center. This one was more of a line drive shot into the seats and straightaway left. That was after Parker had struck out swinging, the first K of the game for Atlanta pitching. That's the only one they got in the 9 innings. Then Esaski hit the 0-2 pitch out to give the Reds a 7-3 lead. Buddy Bell then followed with an infield base hit to shortstop. Ramirez slipped down, couldn't make the play. It's a hit. That's the first hit for Bell on the game. He's now hit safely in 9 of his last 12, with 9 RBIs in his last 11. Not too bad there. He had one 5 RBI game this year. Dave Concepcion then hit into a double play. That went 5-4-3, their third of the game. 1 run, 2 hits, nobody is left on. And now we go to the bottom half of the 8th inning. This is a 1-2-3 frame, final inning for Robinson. They took him out for the pinch hitter in the 9th inning as we tried to get some more. Pete Rose wasn't satisfied with a 4-run lead as he took out a starter for a pinch hitter. Ramirez hit a ground ball to third, Dale Murphy a ground ball to shortstop, and Horner hit a line drive to short to end a quick 8th inning. And Robinson had retired 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He had got 8 in a row, 10 out of the last 11 that he faced. He went out with a bang, as he did a fine job tonight. Good outing to stop that 6-game losing streak. He was indeed the winner. In the Reds' 9th inning, on the first pitch, Diaz, an infield base hit back to the pitcher. A high hopper over the head went off the glove of Sutter. Then there's a pinch runner installed. One batter later, Oster walked to send Diaz to second. And then once he got into scoring position, Diaz with the bad legs, or not very fast ones anyway, put in Max Venable to run. First and second, none out for pinch hitter Tom Runnels. It was going to be Krenchicki, but he wanted Runnels to hit to try to get him into scoring position, a good bunter. And he did just that, a sacrifice bunt 3-4. That's his 3rd sacrifice in a pinch hit situation this season. Milner then was intentionally walked, and once again, for the umpteenth time tonight, the bases are loaded. And again, we don't get anybody in. This is the 3rd time we have the bases loaded with 1 out and don't score. Twice double plays did it. Got Atlanta pitching off the hook. This time a foul pop to short by Rose. Almost an infield fly. And then Dave Parker on the first pitch at a ground ball to the pitcher. So the second time, Dave has failed in a bases loaded situation. Boy, he could have really upped that RBI count and gone way ahead of Murphy. But no runs, 1 hit, 3 left. It all comes out in the long run as we win the ball game. And that's what matters. In the bottom of the 9th inning against Ted Power, the new pitcher, he gets 3 out of 4. A 2-out, 4-pitch walk to Runge is the only thing that he gave up. Benedict had a pop-up on the pitcher's mound, and that was caught in a crowd by Ron Oster to end the game. Washington a ground ball to shortstop. Hubbard took a 3rd strike. Those were the first 2 outs of the inning. In the 9th, no runs, no hits, 1 left, and that's all. The Reds blast the Braves 7-3. It's time now for a statistics check and the wrap-up of this one. Each team used 14 players in the game. The Reds went with 2 pitchers. Atlanta doubled that with 4 hurlers. This was the Reds' 145th game of the year, including a 1 tie that they played at Chicago. As far as percentage, the Reds have won 78 and lost 66 now, going 12 over for 144 decisions. That figures to a very good 542 percentage. And the Reds gained a game and are only 6.5 back in second place alone by 3.5 games over the Astros in the West. Number 20, Eddie Milner. 2 out of 3 in this one with a run scored. And a lot of players had a moldy hit game. 3 players had 3 or more hits. Parker, Esaski, and Diaz. Pete Rose, number 14, 2 hits, 5 at-bats. And he scored 2. Dave Parker, number 39, was 3 out of 6, an error and a run. Nick Esaski in left field, number 12, 3 for 5, scored 2, knocked in 4 runs. Eric Davis, late entry in left field, number 44. Number 25, Buddy Bell, 1 for 4. Number 13, Davey Concepcion, 0 for 5. But he did score a run and knock in a run with an error. Bo Diaz, number 8, 4 for 5 with an RBI. Number 9, Max Venable, pinch runner. Number 23, Dave Van Gorder, catcher. And number 16, Ron Oster, 2 for 3. Number 33, Ron Robinson, 0 for 3. He knocked in a run. Number 10 is Tom Runnels, pinch hitter. No at-bat, 1 sacrifice. Number 48, Ted Power, relief pitcher. The Reds had 17 hits, 39 at-bats, 7 runs, 2 errors. For the Atlanta Braves, this is their 145th game of the year as well. They've won 60 and lost 85. 3 straight losses, 5 of the last 6. They're 25 under, a .414 percentage. They're 25 games back in 5th place. Number 30, Milt Thompson, over 3. Number 49, Jeff Dedman, a pitcher in the number 1 slot, nothing across. Number 10 is Chris Chambliss, pinch hit, 0 for 1. Number 40, Bruce Suter. Number 16, Rafi Ramirez, 1 for 4, a run, an RBI, an error. Number 3, Dale Murphy, 1 for 4, a run batted in. Number 11, Bob Horner, 0 for 4. Number 15, Claudell Washington, 2 for 4, he scored 1. Number 17, Glenn Hubbard, 1 for 4 with a ribby. Number 12, Paul Runge, 0 for 3. Number 20, Bruce Benedict, 0 for 4. Number 39, Len Barker. Number 43, Steve Shields, 1 walk. Number 2, Al Hall, pinch hit left field, 0 for 2 with 2 Ks. The Braves went just 5 for 33 in the game with 3 runs and 1 error. Let's have a look at some pitching data here for this one. Len Barker, as we go to the Braves lines, no batters did he get out. He faced 4 batters. They all scored. He allowed 2 hits, 2 walks. He's the loser. He's 2-9 on the season. His ERA rockets to 6.35. We get word now that he's out of the starting rotation. 73 and 2/3 innings. He's allowed 84 hits and 55 runs, 10 homers, 37 walks, and 47 strikeouts. He's now 2-1 lifetime against the Reds. 2-0 last year, 0-1 this year with a 9 ERA and 2 starts. 5 innings, 5 hits, 5 runs against the Reds this season. He's a 30-year-old right-hander, formerly with the Indians and Texas Rangers. Of course, you'll remember Barker pitching that perfect game against Toronto in May of 1981 with the Indians. He came to the Braves 2 Augusts ago from the Indians in a multiplayer trade involving Brett Butler, Brooke Jacoby, and Rick Behenna. He was born in July of 1955 at Fort Knox, Kentucky. That's Len Barker, the starter tonight. Apparently his last start of the year. He's 7 under. Steve Shields, 5 innings. 10 hits. He allowed 2 runs, but only 1 earned. He walked 3, and I believe 1 of those intentional, yes. Also a wild pitch. No strikeouts. 2 innings for Jeff Dedman. He allowed 2 hits, no runs, nothing else. And then we've got Bruce Suter. 2 innings, 3 hits, and a run. It was earned. He walked 2, 1 intentional. And he struck out 1, allowed a homer. For the Reds, the lines look like this. Robinson, who breaks the 6-game losing streak and picks up his 6th win of the year and his first victory since beating the Expos back on July the 11th. So that's been better than 2 months since he had a win. He was at 5-0 out of the gate after his call-up in May from AAA. Seems like he couldn't stop him, but then all of a sudden 6 losses consecutively. He went 8 innings in this game. He allowed 5 hits and 2 of them home runs. 3 runs, 2 of them earned. He walked 1. And he struck out 7 and threw a wild pitch. Ted Power, 1 inning, no save for him, not eligible. If they had had just a 3-run lead instead of 4, he would have got save number 23. He walked 1 and struck out a batter. More data for this game. Doubles by Diaz, who had 2, Esaski and Hubbard. No triples. Homers, Esaski, number 18, Murphy, number 37, and Ramirez hit his 5th. A game winner for Esaski. Sacrifice bunt by Runnels and Robinson. A stolen base for Milner. Double plays Atlanta 3. Wild pitch Robinson and Shields. Robinson wins it. He's 6-6. Barker 2-9, the loser. And Ron Robinson now has a career record of 2-0 against Atlanta. Both decisions this year. He's pitched 4 times against them this season with a 123 earned run average, 3 in relief. 7 runs, 17 hits, 2 errors for the Reds. They left 14. The Braves had 3 runs, 5 hits, an error, and left 5. 2 hours, 18 minutes for the game. I clock it at 2:18 as well. They paid attendance and the total, 6,581. They're not drawing very well. They had a game that was a 2,400 the other day, and another one of just over 3,000, so not drawing well at Atlanta. That's the price you pay. Because they're under 500 by 25 games, so fans have lost heart, I guess. Behind the plate, the umpire was Bob Engel. At first base, Paul Runge. At second base, Dave Pallone. At third base, Jim Quick. Game underway a minute late at 7:41 p.m. Eastern Time. And here's some more seasonal numbers for some of the pitchers that worked in tonight's game. For the Reds, Ron Robinson. He's got some pretty decent numbers now. His ERA is under 4 for the first time in a long while. He's at 3.89. He's 6-6. With no complete games, 1 save. He's been out there 29 times, 9 as a starter, 88 innings, 85 hits, 10 home runs, 42 runs allowed, 28 walks, and 62 strikeouts. Ted Power, he's 6-4 with 22 saves in 55 games, a 258 earned run average. He's allowed 50 hits and 20 runs in 66 and a third innings. He's walked 38 and struck out 37. For the Braves, Steve Shields, 1-2 in 18 games. No saves, a 4.50 ERA. Jeff Dedman is 5-2 in 54 games, no saves, and a 3.72 earned run average. He's allowed 74 hits, 43 runs, 4 homers, and 77 innings. And Bruce Sutter, 7-7 in 57 games. Not exactly the Bruce Sutter type of earned run average here. 421, 87 innings, 86 hits, 43 runs, 12 homers, and lots of those against the Reds. 23 saves, though. Not a bad figure for him. Reds team earned run average now at 370. They're batting .254 as a squad. They're averaging 4.06 runs per game this season. Well, I'm going to have to wrap it up right here. I don't have time for anything else. Once again, the final score from Atlanta tonight. The Reds win their 4th in a row. Reds 7, Braves 3 in front of 6,581 in a 2-hour, 18-minute game. This is DVP reporting.